Yeah, so what we're going to walk through today is our E100V with the 8190FF. And what this system allows you to do, it allows you to be able to bring in fresh air and ventilate your home, your crawl space, your basement, wherever you're putting this in, and also dehumidify the air at the same time. So the first thing that you're going to notice is the setup of this dehumidifier, the E100V, is very similar, almost identical to our E100. One difference on the E100V is you're going to have a Molex plug, and this Molex plug is what's actually going to control this power damper. This power damper, what this does is when you have it connected to the E100V, when the dehumidifier is running and it's just looking to dehumidify the air that's within the home already, it's going to pull the air in here, run through the dehumidifier, and shoot it out the other end as dry air. Now what's going to happen is when this damper opens, this vent right here is actually going to be pulling the air from the outside, fresh air intake, then forcing it down into the dehumidifier and then out. The really cool thing about this unit is you can set it up to ventilate. If you want to ventilate 10 minutes every hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes every hour, depending on the amount of airflow you want, you can actually set that up. There's also some pretty nifty features where you can put some lockouts in terms of temperature and relative humidity. So, if the relative humidity or the temperature is at a certain temperature or high degree, it will actually lock this out and won't allow you to bring that fresh air in. And the reason that's going to happen, specifically in some of these really hot climates, what we don't want to be doing is bringing in really warm, moist air, because that's just going to make the problem worse. So this will shut off. And then when it does sense that outdoor with the outdoor temperature sensor that it's okay to bring in that fresh air, it's going to allow it to do that. So, at night you may hear the unit kick on just to do ventilation, and then during the day it may close off and just be dehumidifying what's inside the home. The installation for this is pretty similar to just a standard E100. So when you open the box here with the 8190FF, you're going to get three different things. So you're going to get your outdoor temperature sensor, which is going to go near your intake so you can understand what the air feels like outside before it's brought in. You're going to have a couple different cables here that you're going to hook up to this actuator to open and close those dampers when needed. And then you're going to get a couple of screws, and those are going to help you secure this other duct input here, which is going to be a 6-inch, which is going to go to the outside, matched up with the 8-inch that's going to go on here. So this begins as 10-inch. We put on an adapter to go down to 8-inch. But if you want to use 10-inch duct, you can do that as well.
How far apart is this from the E100 unit?
Yeah, that's a great question. It actually connects right here. So we've got a gasket on the end. Those screws that came in the package, you actually bolt this right on. And the way that we've designed this is they actually hang on these bolts. So you don't need to prop this up. It's not going to go anywhere. So, if you're using one of our hanging kits, if you're using risers, you don't necessarily need to put anything underneath this to support it. But you can definitely do that if it makes you feel a little bit more comfortable.
And then this is ducted through this collar.
Yep.
Let's say the foundation wall is 20 feet away. You would duct it to that foundation wall to an intake duct, punch a hole through the wall.
Correct.
And put your temperature sensor inside that. Yes,
or just right near that area.
Okay.
So there are instructions on how you should hang the temperature sensor. It's a pretty easy connection. It'll come right out of the dehu, so if you don't have a ton of wire, you may need to get some if you've got a really long incoming duct. But I would recommend if you can get it near the external wall, that's the easiest way to be able to hook this up. So then you can just, punch a little screw hole outside of the wall, put your temperature sensor there, and then you're all set and ready to rock.
So the closer you can mount this to the exterior wall, the less wire you're going to have to purchase.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. The only thing that you want to think about a little bit is, in terms of in a typical dehu install, you usually want to put it more centrally located. So, think about that. If you've got a really, really long room, you may want to run some ductwork to the other end if you're going to keep it close to the wall, or kind of vice versa. If you want to have it more centrally located, you might just want to buy a little bit extra thermostat wire so you can connect this outdoor temperature sensor to the unit.
And the applications for this could be crawl space, basement, attic, different areas where you want to ventilate. And you mentioned that also this gives enough ventilation to offset ventilation requirements on new construction. Is that correct?
Correct. So, I think the most used application of this product is a lot in new home construction. So a lot of the newer homes are really tight. We're using a lot more spray foam insulation, air sealing, making those sometimes separate parts of the envelope. So a lot of times guys will actually put these in the attic and either duct them into the air handler or leave them standalone, because this will actually, this meets ASHRAE 62.2 in terms of the amount of ventilation that you need to have into that space by code. So it's a really great idea and an easy add-on for a dehumidifier, so then you don't have to go out and buy, an extra either exhaust fan or a balanced ventilation system. So it's really great for that attic install, but really this can go anywhere. If you want to have this in your basement with the fresh air pulling in from outside, you can do that. You can hook it up to your air handler. If you have it in a crawl space or a basement, you want to make sure you're getting some of that stale air out of there. You can actually use this as a standalone. So, at the same time you're getting rid of that moisture and that humidity in the crawl space, you can actually be bringing in a little bit of fresh air as well. But mind you, like I mentioned earlier, you're only going to be bringing in air when it's right for that crawl space. So you're not just going to be bringing in a bunch of 80% relative humidity, 90-degree temperature air into that space. It'll likely wait and bring that fresh air in at night. So it's a little bit cooler. It allows the dehu to not have to work quite as hard. And it also just makes it so that space isn't going to get uncomfortable.
Gotcha.
This is also something that's pretty cool. You can offset this airflow adjustment a little bit. So you can see when it's on the plus and the all the way open, this damper is going to be going completely fresh air. If you want to do a little bit of an offset, you can slide this over, and what that's going to do is it's going to stop the damper, so you can get half fresh air and be dehumidifying air from your home at the same time. So you can get the best of both worlds depending on how you want it, but that's really just a personal preference. So you have that, and then you can see off the diagram here, you've got one of these wires, so this blue wire coming up is going into the vent dampers. So we can screw that in. Make sure that's tight. So the first one of these, we're gonna put it into this wiring clip. Easy enough. So when it's actually set up, it's going to be like this. So then this is going to go into your vent. Get that snug. And then you're going to take this other one, this other connector that's coming from the Molex. Pop that open. Shut it down.
Does it matter which is which?
You just have to make sure you've got one of the blues and one of the yellows. So the yellow coming off of the actuator going into the dehu, and then the one coming out of the Molex is going to be clipping going in here.
Okay.
With that, you're basically ready to rock. Once you bolt this on, you get this in here. But one of the things I want to show you is once you plug it in, while you're still in the off mode, what you're going to do that's a little bit different on this unit than what you would do before is you get the light to go on and you hold mode for 3 seconds. So we don't need to worry about remote for right now. So ventilation standard is going to come and it's going to say disabled. You're going to want to enable that. And then when you click mode again, it's going to say which option that you want. So there's an auto. So there's a timed, there's a D, a C, and a B. So you can see in the manual, you're gonna get to here and it's gonna say, so the timed, there's no temperature limit. So these different things are talking about how much you want to ventilate and what the lockouts are going to be. So when you're in the B ventilation setting, it says ventilation is not allowed if the outdoor temperature is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit or less than 0. Ventilation is allowed only when the heat is on if the ODT is between 0 and 20. So some of these have to do with if you have it hooked up to an HVAC system, what I like to put it on is the C. So the C is, it's gonna lock you out if it's above 100 or less than 0 degrees. So it's not gonna be bringing air to your house if it's crazy cold or crazy hot. And then once you hit the mode button again, you can see that we're on C. It's gonna say how much ventilation do you wanna do. So this reading is how many minutes do you wanna ventilate every hour. So if you only want to ventilate, 5 minutes every hour, you can do that, 10, 20, all the way up to, you can ventilate the whole time if you want to, but at that point you're probably gonna have an offset. So we'll just do 55 minutes so I can make sure you can see the dampers and how they work. So I'm gonna let this rock and you can see this. So on this you can see the temperature is between the 100 degrees and the 0 degrees, so it's saying yes, we can ventilate. It's going to ventilate for 55 minutes every hour on how we have it set up. And what I would recommend is if you are going to do a larger amount of ventilation, I would also select, and you can't do it while it's engaged, but there's a little piece here that says airflow adjustment. And what this does is if you have it all the way in the plus, it's going to mean when it's ventilating, you are 100% pulling in air from the outside and throwing that into your home after it's dehumidified. If you bring this down to the minus setting or somewhere in between, it's going to put a little bit of an offset in here. So that's going to allow you to both bring in some air from the outside, but also condition the air that's already inside your home. So I really like that feature. It's also something, if you perhaps live in a very humid climate, you may want this on the furthest offset, so you bring in as little as possible and also dehumidifying as much as possible. So it really just depends on your home. And if you need to do something in terms of understanding how many air exchanges you want, you may have to do a blower door test or something like that to understand how much air you want to bring in. But after doing that, you can decide based on the CFM of this machine, you can see that perhaps 5 minutes is good enough, 10 minutes is good enough. Whatever setting you need to do, you can dial that in. But definitely recommend having a professional do that sort of thing for you. But you can always play the guess and check game if you want. But coming from experience, it's never fun to set it, go back up in your attic or your crawl space or your basement, redo it, and wait. So I would always say get a professional if you're going to be doing something like this. Or at least kind of have some knowledge of what you're doing and understanding if your home is leaky or not leaky, those sort of things. So, yeah, that's the E100V with the 8190FF. Really excited to see this and more of those applications where people are looking for fresh air in their attic or crawl space.
So just to be clear, whenever this damper is 100% open and this one is 100% closed, I'm pulling outside air in and no air from either the attic or the basement where the dehu is sitting. Is that correct?
Yep.
So this helps me to adjust that if needed. So if I wanted to do 50 fresh air, 50 recycled air, basically 50 dehu air, or 50% air from the crawl space, 50% air from the attic, and then 50% from the outside, I would adjust this little knob to set that off.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, and it's not going to be quite 50-50. We can turn this off and turn it back on so you can see what the difference looks like. Okay, so you had it when it was fully open. So now we're going to do the offset.
So that's another thing that I noticed is that once it turned off, it closed off the outside air.
Yes.
Okay, so that's automatic.
Yep, so it's a powered damper, so it's essentially acting as like a backflow damper when the unit is off. Another thing you can look on here, it'll say ventilating. So when the compressor is not turned on and it's ventilating, it'll just say ventilating. Like right now it's just air sampling. Once that compressor kicks on, it'll either say ventilating and dehumidifying, or it'll just say dehumidifying. But now you can see when that offset's on there, you're still bringing in more from the outside than you are from the home, but at least it's mixing it. So, I kind of like that, just so it's not doing, one or the other.
Right.
It's acting, it's kind of acting as like an ERV or an HRV where it's, you know, mixing those air streams.
And your timer, 5, 10, 60 minute, whatever you set it on, controls how much this is opened for how long. Is that correct?
Yes. It won't affect how wide it's open. That's based on what you set.
Affect how long it's open.
Yep. So if you have it set up for ventilating for 5 minutes, it'll look like this. After 5 minutes, if it's dehumidifying and it hasn't reached the set point, it will then close this off, and then it'll work to dehumidify that air before it shuts off again.
Okay. Very good.